Throughout my career as a professional illustrator, I think the thing that has had the biggest impact on the kinds of projects that I could take on, and I would say financially as well, was adding the ability to include motion into my work. One of the biggest areas for this is like social media advertising, where brands are hiring you to create content. If it can move, they want it to move. The good news is, it's not hard, especially now. It used to be way harder. If you're not aware of the motion features in Fresco, you are gonna be blown away because it automates so much of the process. Can't even tell you how much easier it is than any other animation software that I have ever had any experience with. Especially now, there's been some new updates to Fresco with some motion presets that you can just tap them and your thing would be jumping all over the place. Whatever your thing is in the thing. What am I talking about? Let's make some stuff move. So one of the things I find super useful about Adobe Fresco in terms of motion is the fact that I can animate on separate layers, and it makes some things super easy. For example, making this car look like it's driving down the road. There's some good stuff that we can do. Let me show you. This is pretty straightforward. I've got my wheels on separate layers, and then I just got the car body. This is actually drawing of my old car. If you don't know, when I'm not drawing, I like to do a little bit of track racing, a little bit of autocross, and this was the first car that I started doing that in. My little 1990 Miata, which I miss dearly. I don't have it anymore. Looks just like this one. Anyway, I got my little car drawing that I did here, and I got wheels on separate layers. So, first things first, gotta make the wheels turn. So what I'm gonna do is just tap on one of these wheels, come down to the animation thing at the bottom, go to path, and then we're just gonna look for the rotate option, turn that on, then change this from sway to spin, and now we got a wheel spinning around. If we scroll down here to frames, you can lessen that to make it go faster, or you can drag it out to make it go slower. This can be a little bit confusing because there's frame rate and then there's frames. Okay, so the frames. In an animation, the frames make up the time. So it's like a flip book. So the more images to go through, pages to flip, the slower a movement is going to be. For example, if you had a movement in just 3 images, it would go real fast. If you dragged out that movement over 200 images, then you'd go super slow. So the more frames, the slower it's going to move. So if we bring this down to 10, you'll see it spins a lot faster. This is limited by your frame rate, which is the amount of frames that play throughout a second. So if you go into your settings here, you'll see the frames per second is set to 12. 12 is sort of traditional for animation. Animation can be referred to as animating on 2s. Movies, cinematic movies are typically filmed at 24 frames per second. Animating on 2s just means there's 2 frames for every 1 frame. So that's why it's the default. But you could turn this up wherever you want. You could bring it up to 30 frames per second. And you'll see that wheel is going to spin really quick because there's 30 frames playing for every second. It's going to be pretty tedious if you're doing frame-by-frame animation, so keep that in mind. I want to bring this back down to 12. Okay, so we got this wheel spinning. It's looking good. What I'm going to do, instead of animating the other one, I'm just going to go ahead, delete that wheel, and then duplicate this one here. And then I'm going to drag it over. So I'm going to go into the transform tool, and I'm going to choose layer content and motion paths. That way the path comes with it. So we'll go to transform. And then before I drag it over, I'm going to double click my little modifier button. And what this is going to do is going to lock the wheel on the axis that I was pulling. It dropped down a little bit because I pushed past it. Basically, when you have it locked, it's going to lock it to whatever axis you are moving. So because I dragged over, but I was pulling down a little bit accidentally, it moved down. But it's pretty forgiving. So I'm gonna put that right there. And now I'm just gonna drag my car body over the wheels. And now we got 2 wheels spinning. It looks like it's moving, but that's not that realistic. Obviously, this is not going to be realistic because look at this car here. But this race car is going fast over a road. The road is going to be a little bit bumpy. It's going to be moving up and down a little bit. So we want to move the whole chassis up and down on the wheels to show the suspension working. What we can do here is use a motion path on this car body. So with this path thing, if I just draw a line, you'll see this is going to go up and down and follow that path. That obviously doesn't look very good, but what we can do is do a smaller one. So what I'm going to do is just draw like a little circle. Okay, so that movement is pretty good. It's just a little bit slow. So we're going to come in here, take out some of these frames. But I think that's okay, but maybe it's a little too bumpy, but let's look at it with the wheels. You know, it doesn't look too bad, but I think we can do a little bit better. So what I'm going to do is come in here. Let's zoom in. We can look at that circle. I'm going to say maybe it's a little too much. So maybe I'll keep the circle within that gray shape there. So we can just delete that path. I think that's looking good. Hey, it's Feature Chris, just dropping in from the future. I just wanted to let you know that this video is sponsored by Skillshare. And they're the perfect sponsor for this video because you may be seeing this discussion and thinking, wow, there is a lot of really powerful stuff you can do in Adobe Fresco with motion. And maybe you want to take a class about that. And you know what? I have the class just for you. In my class, Easy Animation for Illustrators in Adobe Fresco, I not only walk you through the basics of Adobe Fresco, but I show you how to animate in a whole bunch of different ways, adding continuous looping movement to your illustrations. If you go over to Skillshare and you check out this class, you can see a whole bunch of amazing student projects. You can see them saying, this is the first time I've tried to animate, and they're all doing animations. But listen, you don't have to take my word for it. I'm going to pop up on the screen just an assortment of some really nice positive reviews talking about my classes on Skillshare. That's a nice one. Oh, I really like this one. Maybe you want to try something else. Are you interested in hand lettering? What about my class, An Introduction to Illustrative Lettering? In this class, I go over typographic fundamentals. I show you how to start stylizing and playing around with letters. This class has stuff for the beginner who's never done anything with lettering, all the way to someone who's gotten a lot more comfortable with lettering but wants to sort of evolve their work. Check out some of these amazing projects from students in my class. Can you believe it? So good. If you don't already know about Skillshare, it is the largest online platform for creatives with just tons and tons of amazing classes on things like illustration, photography, video, design, productivity, music. There's everything out there. We got people like Lisa Congdon, Kate Bingaman-Burt, John Bergerman, Tom Froese, Kirk Wallace, Andy J. Pizza, Jesse Ledoux, Abby Lossing, Mary-Kate McDevitt, Aaron Draplin. There's so many. There's me too. Did I mention I have classes on there? It is a treasure trove. The first 500 people to use my link will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Link in description. I went ahead and grabbed a moving background from something else I've done to show you how when you combine this with like stuff moving in the background, it'll take it to a whole other level. Okay, so I got this stuff happening in the foreground and the background, and we hit play. And so we got this car driving through the scene. Got stuff moving at different speeds. We got stuff that's closer to us moving faster. We've got those mountains in the far distance that are, you know, not really moving because they're really far away. And we got stuff happening in the foreground that comes by really quick. It's pretty neat. It's pretty fun. And it's quick and easy. And because we can have different timelines on each layer, it makes it so easy to control the speed for how things move. If you wanted to recreate this thing in something like Procreate, it'd be really difficult because your timeline is based, like each one of your layers is a frame in your timeline. Granted, you could use something like Procreate Dreams to do this, but it's not as easy because you don't have all of these motion presets where you can just like draw a path or have the wheels spin around. There's give and takes. There's some strengths that Procreate Dreams does have. It has a full video thing, so you can import sound, something that you'd want to use if you were animating a short. But for like a looping animation like this, it's hard to beat it. Hard to beat it. So a quick tip when you are doing a sequence that has lots of different timelines on each layers, you want to make sure that they're all compatible via the frames. Otherwise, your animation can get off track. And what I mean by that is, you'll see here we've got 24 frames happening on this little line sequence that kind of comes through the scene. If we come to this one over here, this is just a single image, but if you come to our path and we go down to our frames, you'll see we've got 48 frames here. So the other one was 24. That thing is going to happen 24, start over, and then it can go again while that one's going to 48. Let me break this down with less numbers so it's less confusing. If you had 2 frames, we'll just do it. Why explain when I can show? Red ball. And we'll put it on a path so it's going across the screen. We will set this to 10 frames. We'll do this little triangle here. And we'll put this one on a path as well. But we'll set this one to an odd number, like 23. And then we'll play them both, and you can see what happens when they're not in sync. So we hit play. Now you see there's a little bit of a stutter that happens. The reason that stutter is happening is because this red ball goes to 10 frames and then starts over, goes back to 1 and keeps going back. That's all fine and will work forever, but now we've introduced another sequence, but this one's 23 frames. So this one goes to 23 and then starts back over. The red ball goes 1, 2, everything's good, and then it starts over, and then it gets to 3, and then the blue one ends, so that has to start over, and it messes up the sequence. So you just want them to be divisible by the same amount. If we went down to this blue one and instead of making it 20, instead of making it 23, we made it 20, now they will stay the same because the red sequence just goes through twice for every one sequence for the blue one, because there's 20 frames in the blue one, 10 in the red one. They just need to be divisible into each other. Okay. Hey, this is another Chris from the future. I realized that I used the same process on a music video I worked on for Fits in the Tantrums. I'm going to show you some of that video here, but obviously I can't use the song or I'm going to get a copyright flag. Past Chris, you're going to have to figure out how to do something so it's not just silence.
Keeping my head up, keeping my head up, keeping my head up.
All right, so I got this zombie here. This is one of the Stinktober prompts for Halloween. So, you know, that's a bee, it's a zombie. Anyway, it's just a simple, flat drawing right here. And I'm going to show you some of these new motion presets that come in Fresco. So we just go down to the motion menu in the bottom right corner, and then go to path. You'll see here we just got these presets, and you can just tap them and it'll automatically start doing different things to your drawing. This sparkle one, we got this bounce one. Look at that. Spin. A lot of really fun stuff. Just a simple way to bring things to life very, very quickly. And because each layer can have its own timeline, you could have a whole bunch of different things set different ways and have things moving around in different ways at different speeds, etc. And, you know, you can come in and control this even more from the preset. You can see down here the angle set to 45, but let's say you wanted it to be less. You could bring that down to 17, it's going to go like that. You can bring it out to 90 and it's going to go almost all the way around. Pretty cool. I think if you changed it to spin, it would just spin all the way around like this. So motion presets are a quick, easy way to just have this thing start moving around without any extra work. A way you can take this to the next level is by combining it with a little bit of frame-by-frame animation. Okay, so here I just went a little bit further and redrew this little zombie twice. So there's 3 frames. What I did was I just moved the wings a little bit. So we got the first frame, second frame, come together a little bit, and then the third frame, they just go out a little bit. I didn't want there to be like a ton of flapping motion because bees' wings don't really look like that, like a bird flapping like this. They're just sort of just like, so I figured less movement would just make it look a little bit quicker. So if we play that, they're just sort of going a little bit. And I decided to redraw the zombie for each of the frames by just tracing it over so that it has that sort of vibration, wiggle, old school animation look that I like. And I also took the opportunity to just have the eyes kind of change a little bit more, just to give it a little bit more character, look a little bit more crazy. I got the hands moving a little bit, but overall it's staying pretty much the same. So what we can do now is take this 3-frame loop and put it on one of those paths. So I can just come down here to path, and let's just put this on, let's try this bounce one. Look at that. That combined with the flapping wings, looks like it's trying so hard to just keep this big chonky body off the ground. But it's not easy, because this is a heavy bee. He's been eating a lot of other bees because he's a zombie. I think the bounce one's probably the best, but, you know, let's see what this... Actually, this general one is actually kind of perfect. I think that's the one. All right, let's do some quick, simple tips. Let's say you want to move eyeballs around within this skull, but you don't want to draw it over and over in each time. Come down here to the frame by frame sequence, and if you tap on the individual frame, you can go to duplicate the frame. You can duplicate it many times as you want. Let's say we want some little eyeballs in here. We can draw those in, and then we can go to the next frame, and you'll see that they're a little bit lighter, and it's helpful, so you can draw them the next one. This is called onion skins. You can come into your settings here and adjust that. I like to bring mine down to 1. That way I'm only seeing the previous and next frame. The default to 3 shows a bunch of frames at once. It can get a little confusing. Let's say I want the eyeball, the little pupils to move the pupils there, and then we can come to this third one. We can put them down here. Then we can see what that looks like. So we just hit play. You see the eyes are moving around. But maybe you want it to be a little bit smoother, but still a little wonky. What I like to do is duplicate that first frame, drag it to the end of the sequence to use as like a visual, and then I'll delete it afterwards. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate that last frame. So now we can see the previous frame and the next frame. So what I'm going to do is just grab black and just draw pupils in between those 2 positions. So then we can go ahead and delete that last frame. And now when we play this, it doesn't have as much of a hop, still a little wiggly wobbly. Let's say we want the eyes to not be there all the time. What we could do is duplicate this first one, come in here, go ahead and fill those in. Maybe we can duplicate this frame a few times. Maybe we'll do one more here. We could just do like a little hint at those eyes coming in. And again, it's a little bit darker because we're seeing the next frame over it, and it's got that black. Come in here, trim those a little bit more. Maybe we can put some pupils in there. And now if we play that, which they come in pretty nicely, but let's say we want them to go out the same way, what we could do is duplicate that frame and then just come in here and draw black over this part to get them going back in. I can see that looks fine and dandy, but we can give it a little bit more energy by doing something called an overshoot, where you push the movement a little bit further before it goes into place. It'll give it a more dynamic, fun little pop. What we'll want to do here is put in a new one. Let's duplicate this one. Now we come back to the one where they're normal and meat. Turn off onion skins so you can see what I'm talking about here. I'll just draw this one without onion skins on. So this overshoot, we want the eyes to bug out further, and then they go back to norms, and it'll give it like just a more dynamic look. If you don't believe me, you can just wait and see. So I'm just going to fill in the pupils here and then just draw them bugging out I'm gonna go quite a bit further, because sometimes you gotta exaggerate movements quite a bit in simple animation like this for it to be noticeable, or it'll be a little bit too subtle. I'm gonna put some pupils on, make them a little bit bigger. When we play that, you'll see we get that nice little pop. Boing, boing, boing. See, I told you it was fun and easy, right? I know a couple times I got a little confused, but it's because I was trying to show you everything. But if you forget about the confusing parts and you just look at the simple stuff, start with that. And then you could try some of the more complicated stuff. If you just want to make something move, you could just tap some buttons and have it flying around in seconds. So I would start doing it right now. Go make something move. It's a lot of fun. I had the idea to make this video after I made last week's video where I talked about a bunch of different tips for creating vector artwork in Adobe Fresco. The reason I thought about this one is because I was thinking vector artwork is one of the reasons why I love Adobe Fresco. I can do vector and pixel all within the same application, the same drawing experience. So I was like, oh, I should do a video about the motion features next. So that's what this is. If you didn't see the vector video, I'll put a link right here and you can go check that one out, because that one's got a lot of helpful tips in there too. You could pair them with the motion stuff if you want. How about that? All right, it's been a good talk. I will see you later.